Could these long-range missiles be the key to ending the war in Ukraine? Could these powerful weapons change the course of history? As they arrive in Ukraine, these missiles are not just tools of war. They might be the tipping point that brings peace. Today, we'll uncover how these missiles could open the door to a ceasefire and new peace talks. This is a story of power, strategy, and hope. Let's dive in with Politalysis to see how these missiles might be the key Ukraine needs for peace.
Overnight, Russia launched a huge air attack on Ukraine. They claim that it's in reaction to Ukraine's use of American-made long-range weapons to strike into Russia.
This breaking overnight, Russia has launched a massive missile and drone attack over Ukraine, targeting the country's energy facilities.
In November 2024, everything changed. President Joe Biden gave Ukraine the green light to use long-range missiles, the Army Tactical Missile System, or ATACMS. This wasn't just a sign of support. It was a calculated move to help Ukraine fight for peace. The United States had been careful before, not wanting to risk direct conflict with Russia. But as NATO's support grew stronger, so did the need to make a bold move towards negotiations. ATACMS is a powerful surface-to-surface missile that can reach up to 300 kilometers. It means Ukraine can now hit key targets deep in Russian-held areas, places that were safe before. Supply lines, command centers, and logistics hubs are no longer beyond reach. This was a game changer. With these missiles, Ukraine could disrupt Russian forces far behind their front lines. Not long after the decision, Ukraine launched ATACMS strikes deep into Russian-held areas, like Bryansk. This wasn't just about retaliation, it was about showing strength. Ukraine was ready to negotiate, but from a strong position. The strike in Bryansk hit critical infrastructure and supply depots, making it harder for Russia to keep its operations going. And Russia took notice. Russia's response was swift and fierce. Hypersonic missiles, called Oreshnik, were launched towards cities like Dnipro. These missiles are incredibly fast, over Mach 5. Stopping them is almost impossible. Putin wanted to show that Russia would not back down. But as the battle grew, both sides knew this wasn't about taking land. It was about setting the stage for peace talks, hopefully when President Trump takes office. The long-range missiles gave Ukraine a powerful opportunity to strike at key Russian supply points, ammo depots, and the Kerch Bridge, a crucial link between Russia and Crimea. Built in 2018, the Kerch Bridge is vital for Russian forces in Crimea and southern Ukraine. It's a symbol of Russian control, but a successful hit could do more than break supplies. It could push Russia to the table for peace talks. Ukraine's aim is clear: disrupt the supply route, hurt Russian morale, and make the fight too costly for Moscow to continue. Russia's feeling the strain. Their artillery supplies are running low, and they've had to look to unlikely allies like North Korea for help. North Korea is trading artillery shells for food and aid, showing how much Russia's struggling. This desperation is a chance for Ukraine. Since getting the long-range missiles, Ukrainian forces have destroyed over 20 Russian supply depots in occupied areas, targeting ammunition, fuel, and logistics hubs. This has crippled Russia's ability to keep their front lines going. Their dwindling supplies are tipping the balance, pushing Russia to think about peace instead of more fighting. Meanwhile, Donald Trump, the elected U.S. president, has shared a peace plan for Ukraine. His plan focuses on three main ideas: a ceasefire, a demilitarized zone, and possibly NATO membership for Ukraine, but only if some conditions are met. Trump suggested creating a buffer zone between Ukraine and Russia, similar to the demilitarized area on the Korean peninsula. This buffer zone would be about 18 to 31 miles wide and would act as a barrier to prevent more fighting between the two countries. Trump's plan also calls for a ceasefire within the first 24 hours of his presidency. In his own words, "They're dying. I want them to stop dying, and I'll have that done. I'll have that done in 24 hours. He thinks this action could stop more bloodshed and give both sides time to start talks. Trump also says he'll bring NATO members together to make a deal, offering Ukraine a possible path to NATO membership if it's willing to give up some of its eastern areas. Trump's plan, however, comes with big challenges. Ukraine would have to think about giving up control of parts of Donbas and possibly Crimea. areas that make up about 16% of Ukraine's land. More than 4 million people live in these areas, and the value, especially in Crimea, includes important things like ports and energy supplies. The estimated loss for Ukraine if these areas are given up could be as much as $20 billion each year, a big hit to the country's economy, which is already hurt by the war. President Zelensky has been against the idea of giving up Ukrainian land. For the Ukrainian people, areas like Donbas and Crimea are not just pieces of land, they're symbols of their identity and resistance. However, Zelensky's position has started to show some signs of flexibility. Recent surveys by the Kyiv International Institute of Sociology show that while 60% of Ukrainians are against giving up any land, about 25% would consider it if it means NATO membership and lasting peace. This possible compromise has caused a lot of debate in Ukraine. The idea of NATO membership is attractive to many Ukrainians, especially after seeing the damage caused by the war. If NATO's defense promise, Article 5, were extended to Ukraine, it would mean that an attack on Ukraine would be seen as an attack on all member countries, which would help stop future Russian attacks. But for some Ukrainians, the idea of giving up any land is not okay, as it feels like a betrayal of the sacrifices made by their soldiers and people. The political and social situation in Ukraine is complicated. More than 9,000 civilians have died since the invasion started, and millions have had to leave their homes. The economic damage is severe, with GDP shrinking by 30% in 2022 alone. For many, the idea of ending this suffering through peace talks, even if it means hard compromises, is becoming more appealing. Trump's proposed peace plan, despite its problems, connects to this feeling, suggesting that a path to NATO and a buffer zone might be a realistic way to end the conflict. Winter is here, and the humanitarian crisis is getting worse. Temperatures drop below 14 degrees Fahrenheit, and millions are left without heat, electricity, or clean water. Russia's attacks have destroyed over 30% of Ukraine's power grid. The Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, Europe's largest, is still under Russian control, and its future is a constant worry. Many cities face darkness, rolling blackouts, and limited services. It's hard to keep going in these conditions, but amid the cold and dark, these missiles bring hope, not because they bring more war, but because they might force Russia into a position where talks are the only option. By making it too costly for Russia to keep fighting, Ukraine hopes to create the condition for a ceasefire and real peace talks. Public opinion in the United States and Europe is also shifting. In the U.S., more people are growing tired of the conflict. Recent polls show that while most people still support helping Ukraine, about 40% now prefer a diplomatic solution, even if it means Ukraine has to give up some land. Young people in particular are weary of endless conflicts overseas. In Europe, leaders in Germany and France are calling for new diplomatic efforts, worried about future escalation and the risk of conflicts spreading beyond Ukraine. So, will these long-range missiles bring peace or more war? For Ukraine, they're not just weapons. They're tools that might finally bring about serious negotiations and an end to the war. The world's watching as both sides prepare for January, a critical moment when diplomacy might take the lead, or war could continue. The stakes are high, and what happens next could shape the future of Ukraine and the rest of the world. One of the most important battlegrounds in the war has been Crimea, a region with great meaning and value. At the center of this conflict is the Kerch Bridge. It's not just a bridge connecting Russia to Crimea. It's a key lifeline for Russian forces in the south and a symbol of Russia's control. Ukraine's attacks on the bridge show its plan to cut off Russian supplies and weaken its hold on the area. Hitting the Kerch Bridge has hurt Russia's plans and shown Ukraine's strength and will to take back its land. Pressure mounts on Russia, both globally and at home. As economic sanctions bite, the Russian people are growing restless. Widespread economic difficulties, coupled with soaring casualty numbers, have led to growing dissent. The Kremlin's iron grip over the media and public discourse is slipping. Citizens are questioning, why continue a costly war that only brings more misery? Remarkably, Russian gas still flows through Ukraine to Europe. In 2023, over 517 billion cubic feet of gas passed via the Sudza route, accounting for roughly half of Russia's exports to Europe. However, with the transit deal set to expire in late 2024, Ukraine has indicated it will not renew the agreement. This decision could significantly impact Russia's economic future, particularly as the Nord Stream 2 pipeline, which was designed to bypass Ukraine, remains a critical and contentious factor in the energy landscape. But we'll see that in another video. Meanwhile, Russia's military industry is firing on all cylinders, producing 1,200 tanks and over 3 million artillery rounds annually. But Ukraine's response has been creative and relentless, with sea drones wreaking havoc on the Black Sea fleet, 1/3 now lying on the seafloor. With Russia on the back foot, Ukraine has resumed crucial grain exports, boosting both morale and economy. For Ukraine, the coming months are crucial. The long-range missiles have given them new tools to pressure Russia both on the battlefield and in diplomacy. The question is whether this pressure will be enough to bring Russia to the table and secure lasting peace. The stakes are incredibly high. This war has already cost thousands of lives and displaced millions. The choices made in the coming weeks will have far-reaching effects, not just for Ukraine and Russia, but for the entire world. As the world watches, there's hope that these missiles won't just bring more destruction, but could be the tools that end the suffering and lead to a stable future. The long-range missiles may shift the balance of power, but at what cost? Will they bring the peace Ukraine longs for, or will they prolong the suffering? Peace is within reach, but it'll take more than just weapons. It'll take courage, compromise, and a willingness to look beyond today's battles. Let us know your thoughts. Are these missiles the key to ending the war, or are they just adding fuel to an already blazing fire? And as always, subscribe for more in-depth looks at some of the world's most pressing issues.